I was Xia Yuan's Empress for 30 years. On his deathbed, the last words he left me were an imperial edict to depose me as Empress. Xin Niaoling, if there is a next life, do not covet the wealth and honor of the imperial family. Marry a husband who truly loves you. So he intended to posthumously honor his long-deceased consort Shu as Empress and be buried with her in the imperial mausoleum. I took off my court robes, smashed the phoenix crown to pieces on the ground, and returned it to him. After being reborn, he hurriedly brought his beloved back to the capital, treasuring her like a precious jewel. I also sought another marriage proposal for myself. Later, as the new wife of the imperial uncle, I had an audience before the emperor. The usually aloof and indifferent crown prince nearly crushed his fist in anger. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. Aling. Regarding the crown prince's matter, it is ultimately my failure in parenting that has wronged your Shen family. The emperor helped me up from the ground and let out a helpless sigh. I lowered my eyes and murmured softly, Your Majesty, rest assured, the crown prince has always been wise and must have his own plans. No matter how much I tried to smooth things over, the royal family's dignity had already been lost beyond recovery throughout the capital. Just 7 days ago, Crown Prince Xia Yuan returned to the capital, bringing with him a foreign woman. The woman had thick golden curls, emerald-like pupils, and skin whiter than snow, beautiful as a Persian cat from the western regions. Originally, the capital city was abuzz with gossip about it. As the crown prince, it was hardly surprising for him to indulge in something novel, as long as the principal consort remained a daughter of the Shen family. But Xia Yuan insisted on bringing the woman before the emperor, standing before the imperial relatives with an expression of utmost devotion. Not a concubine, nor a palace maid. He wanted this foreign woman to become his one and only wife. How could a dignified crown prince possibly marry a barbarian woman as his wife? How could the vast people of Huaxia ever recognize a woman of unknown origins as their queen mother? This has really stirred up a hornet's nest. The emperor immediately shattered the crystal cup, veins bulging in anger, and delivered a resounding slap to Xia Yuan's face. He also punished him by making him kneel before the Empress's memorial tablet for 3 days and 3 nights. Yet, despite enduring the scolding and punishment, Xia Yuan stubbornly refused to loosen his grip on the woman's hand. Not a single finger will be loosened. Soon, the young lovebirds could be seen everywhere in the capital. One moment they were boating on the lake, the next strolling through peach groves at night. Xia Yuan seemed determined to make the whole world understand. He doesn't care about worldly opinions. He loves her openly and without shame. A Yuan is determined to make this woman the crown princess. I am too old now. I fear I can no longer dictate his decisions. The emperor seemed to age 10 years overnight. But Ailing, with just one word from you, I can have this concubine executed for you. In the future, you will be the unshakable crown princess, and he won't dare to waver in his affections again. I remained silent for a moment, then shook my head with a light laugh. Your Majesty, Ailing will not marry. In my past life, I was Xia Yuan's empress for 30 years. On his deathbed, he gave me an edict to depose the empress, demoting me to the rank of consort, to be buried in the consort's tomb after death, posthumously elevating consort Huang Yulian to the rank of empress, to be buried with him in the imperial mausoleum, all to make up for the regret of being forced by court politics to not marry his beloved, who then passed away too soon. Right. This girl was an orphan with no name. Xia Yuan borrowed the phrase, jade lotus emerging from water with fragrant mist, and, because of her golden hair, gave her a Han Chinese name, Huang Yulian. He trampled me so thoroughly just to please his beloved, not forgetting to stab me with an even more painful remark. Xin Niaoling, if there is an afterlife, do not covet the wealth and status of the imperial family. Marry a husband who truly loves you instead. I was born into the prestigious Shen family of Gusu, noble beyond compare. My father and elder brother defended the border, died in battle, and our entire family was loyal and heroic. My mother tested medicines for the people suffering from the plague and died a painful death from illness. The late emperor cared deeply and made long-term plans for Xia Yuan, to win over the noble families of Jiangnan and to gain the people's support. I was made the crown princess. He said I married him only because I coveted the wealth and status of his noble family. Did you understand that clearly? As soon as the words left his mouth, I, who had been attending to his illness, suddenly stood up and splashed the scalding medicinal broth onto his face. He was horrified. I expressionlessly removed my court robes, shattered the phoenix crown, and walked out of the bedchamber with disheveled hair, until the person on the dragon bed behind me drew their last breath in fury. Xia Yuan can rest assured, if there is a next life, even if he doesn't say it, I will still do the same. What? You're not getting married anymore. The emperor's face was filled with shock. Once again, I knelt on the ground and bowed 3 times. Your Majesty, the crown prince does not like your humble subject's daughter at all. His heart belongs to another. So why should your humble subject's daughter interfere and upset him? In my previous life, for the sake of the deceased Huang Yulian, he even went so far as to depose me from my position as Empress. If Huang Yulian were to be executed because of me in this life, wouldn't he tear me to pieces when he ascends the throne in the future? The emperor looked at my obedient yet resolute face, perhaps recalling my stubborn father. His expression turned awkward, and he agreed. But I promised your parents to find you a good marriage. The heavy stone weighing on my heart has finally been lifted. I kowtow in gratitude for your Majesty's grace. I poured a cup of calming tea for the emperor, who couldn't hide his regret. Your Majesty, your subject's daughter doesn't necessarily have to marry into the imperial family. There are other men of noble lineage we could consider. The emperor took a sip of tea and was reminded of another headache-inducing issue. Imperial uncle Song Jinglan is nearly 25, 9 years older than you, and still unmarried. Would you accept him? Song Jinglan, as the imperial uncle, was highly favored by the emperor, but in the eyes of the capital's populace, he was an inscrutable and cold-faced king of hell. In my previous life, I heard he never married. Young ladies from decent families with even a bit of beauty dared not marry him, fearing neglect would be worse than living as a widow. But I didn't mind much. Mutual respect in marriage seemed better than resentment from a spouse. The emperor took charge, first sending a letter to Song Jinglan, the imperial uncle guarding the border, to sound out his intentions. Not even the first stroke of the character 8 is written. I begged the emperor not to spread the news. Several months later, at the Mid-Autumn Palace banquet, I finally met Xia Yuan. Once again, he arrived unannounced with Huang Yulian. The foreign girl couldn't get used to eating shed fish and fumbled with the ivory chopsticks, drawing laughter from the entire hall. With just a coquettish whimper, Xia Yuan personally picked out fish bones and peeled shrimp shells for her. He fed her tender pieces of fish and shrimp one by one, completely disregarding the astonished gazes of the imperial relatives and the emperor's face, darker than the bottom of a pot. They secretly cast sympathetic glances toward me. Sitting in the corner, the marriage between the Shen family and the imperial family is likely to fall through. To which family should I be married now? After the banquet, the emperor asked me to stay overnight in the palace. The autumn wind rises suddenly, withering the lotus leaves, leaving the pond desolate. I broke off a withered lotus stem to tease the koi fish surfacing from the water. Suddenly, a faint sound came from behind, startling the fish into diving back into the dark lake. You remembered my words. That's good. This was the first thing Xia Yuan said to me after his rebirth. He still looks like the young man I remember, dressed in a sapphire blue narrow-sleeved python robe, his eyes as dark as lacquer, his cheeks porcelain white, like a flawless jade figurine. His thin lips were pressed together handsomely, with an air of uncontainable nobility and arrogance between his brows. Only, the Hu maiden was nowhere to be seen by his side. I heard the emperor plans to arrange another marriage for you. Who is the fortunate man? None of your concern. His pinky brushed against my wrist. Utterly presumptuous. In my past life, I spoke too harshly. In truth, with your Shin family background, marrying into the Imperial family was quite fitting. I narrowed my eyes warily. What do you mean? Xia Yuan pinched the bridge of his nose, raising his hand to touch my cheek again, but I avoided it. His face instantly turned ashen, and he gritted his teeth in frustration. In the customs of the Hu people, there is no distinction between wives and concubines or between legitimate and illegitimate children. If you marry me again, I will grant you the title of Liangdi, and in the future, you will become a noble consort, a status sufficiently honorable. We spent 30 years together in our past lives and are familiar with each other. Yulian is innocent and carefree, unaware of the intricacies of palace affairs. With you sharing the burden, her reputation outside the palace would surely improve greatly. Having been reborn, I refuse to even be his principal wife, let alone a concubine. Moreover, as someone born into a noble family, how could I possibly share a husband with a Hu woman under the same roof? As the crown prince, he's not afraid of bringing shame to the royal family. But I pity my loyal Shin family, whose reputation is being tarnished by this despicable pair. Your Highness, I gave Xia Yuan a forced smile. I sincerely wish you and Miss Yulian a long and happy marriage. I won't disturb your lovey-dovey time in the Eastern Palace. This is absolutely from the bottom of my heart. Xia Yuan's pupils constricted sharply, as if pricked by a needle. He had always been arrogant, never tolerating any defiance from others. In the past, I merely pleaded with him to spare the wife and daughter of a certain disgraced official, begging him not to send them to the court of imperial entertainments. He found a baseless charge to confine me to the palace for 3 months, providing only thin rice porridge each day. The dignified Empress was actually starved to the brink of death. What? Are you still so jealous of Yulian? Xia Yuan, tall and imposing, stared down at me from above. Imposing and intimidating. Yet I felt no fear. Lady Yulian is blessed indeed. This humble subject dares not claim such fortune. His face darkened, his eyes locking onto me with intensity. A woman as vain and greedy as you, even if married into an ordinary family, would still yearn for the wealth of the imperial household. By then, if you beg me to let you into the Eastern Palace, I'd only be willing to grant you the lowest rank of a kainu. The cold and venomous tone in his words disgusted me to the core. I was just about to curse him with some harsh words. From a distance came the coquettish call of a woman. Your Highness, the palace is so dreadfully dull. Huang Yulian, dressed in a goose yellow gown, hid behind the rockery. Though I couldn't clearly see her face, I could notice Xia Yuan visibly relaxing his brows. Yulian, if you find the palace too quiet, I'll take you away at once. Her voice was so gentle it could wear through stone, no longer carrying the cold indifference she once showed me, just like every time in my past life when Consort Huang summoned him away from my palace. Xia Yuan gave me a warning glance before turning on his heel and leaving. Song Dinglan has replied. I replied with just a single, good, regarding the marriage between him and me. Along with the letter came a pearwood box. Inside it was an old silver bracelet. Your mother once pawned a silver bracelet to buy medicine for a beggar while practicing medicine at the border. She could never find it again afterward. Song Jinglan, upon hearing this, searched every pawnshop across the western regions and finally redeemed it for you. I traced the lotus pattern engraved on the inner side of the silver bracelet. A surge of sourness rising in my nose, nearly bringing me to tears. This was the design my father personally carved when he sought my mother's hand in marriage. They lived modestly, with clean hands and pure hearts throughout their lives, leaving me few heirlooms. Only this bracelet remained, one I had sent many people to search for in the western regions, yet found nothing. Now my wish has been fulfilled. I truly don't know how to thank Song Dinglan enough. I wiped the tears from the corners of my eyes and solemnly put the silver bracelet on my wrist. Since both parties have agreed to the marriage, it's time to set the wedding date. The Emperor had the Imperial Astronomical Bureau select an auspicious date, which was set for 7 days later. He even took out funds from the Imperial Treasury to add more than a dozen additional dowry items for me. Song Ginglon mentioned in his letter that he's busy with border affairs and might not be able to arrive on the wedding day. So he's afraid you'll have to go through the ceremony alone. I smiled, my eyes curving into crescents. No matter. The Imperial uncle has guarded the frontier with great toil and rendered outstanding service. I don't mind. At noon the next day, betrothal gifts from the Imperial uncle's residence were delivered to the Shin residence in an endless stream. A full 99 chests. Among them were rare treasures that could only be obtained abroad or at great expense. All the maids and servants in the courtyard were stunned, thinking the Imperial uncle intended to gift the entire mansion to our family. Glancing at the less than 30 chests of dowry in the storeroom, I couldn't help but swallow hard. Just as we were about to take inventory, a tall figure appeared at the doorway. Look up. My face was tense. What brings your highness here? Xia Yuan leaned against the door with his arms crossed, his gaze sweeping over the betrothal gifts before finally settling on me. A playful smile curled on his lips. You're just being stubborn. My head instantly felt twice its size. This self-righteous fool. I was just about to explain to him. The next moment, a pale yellow figure rushed up to me. Huang Yulian took my hand, her emerald green eyes glistening with faint tears. Sister Shen, she said, His Highness and I have agreed. We will both enter the Eastern Palace together. I will honor you as my elder sister and follow your lead in all matters. I subtly glanced at her pale fingers and said coldly, I'm an only child. I don't need another sister. Her expression froze, barely maintaining her facade. After all, we'd spent 7 or 8 years together in the Imperial harem. I couldn't be bothered to play along with her act. Go on your own. The Shin residence has always been hospitable, and I don't want to have the servants chase you out with brooms. The silver bracelet on her wrist let out a crisp clink as it was tugged. Huang Yulian froze for a moment, her face turning deathly pale in an instant. My bracelet. How did it end up on my sister's hand? What a mess. I immediately pulled my wrist away from her grip, but she only held on tighter. She stared fixedly at my silver bracelet, a strange glint flashing in her eyes. I turned to Xia Yuan with a pleading look. Your Highness, actually during the last Mid-Autumn Palace banquet, I lost a silver bracelet. I didn't dare to make a fuss for fear of disturbing His Majesty. But who would have thought this bracelet would end up on Sister Shen? What nonsense are you talking about? Xia Yuan furrowed his brows tightly, strode over, and grabbed my wrist. Yulian, is there anything special about your bracelet? Huang Yulian bit her red lips, her eyes brimming with tears. Inside the silver bracelet is carved a lotus flower, which my mother personally engraved for me before she passed away. That short sentence exploded in my mind. How could she know what flower was carved on the bracelet? No time to think carefully. Xia Yuan pressed his lips together and unceremoniously turned over my wrist. The small lotus was clearly visible. So it is the silver bracelet of Yulian. He looked at me with a cold expression. Will you take it off yourself? Or shall I do it for you? The tears in Huang Yulian's eyes shimmered, on the verge of falling but not quite. Xia Yuan seized my wrist, his grip tightening even more. Just like every argument I had with Huang Yulian in my past life, he couldn't wait to take her side. Even when Huang Yulian foolishly used the highly toxic Militia reticulata to make porridge, and I, well versed in pharmacology, intervened to save Xia Yuan's life. Yet, faced with Huang Yulian's tearful, pitiful weeping, he stubbornly defended her, insisting she meant no harm and accusing me of trying to sabotage their affection. To Xia Yuan, I was the most malicious woman in the world. No matter what I do, it's always wrong. The grievances accumulated from past and present lives welled up in my heart. I struggled to hold back the sting in my eyes and choked out. Xia Yuan, this is the keepsake my mother left me. Xia Yuan clicked his tongue in obvious disbelief. Shin Niaoling, are you going to hand over the bracelet or not? Seeing my stubborn expression, as if I'd rather die than yield, he then pinned down my wrist, attempting to forcibly remove the silver bracelet. Hiss, it hurts so much. Though my wrist is slender, the silver bracelet is too tight, pressing against the joint. Xia Yuan forcefully pried at the bracelet, making tears drip down my face from the pain. Even Huang Yulian was stunned. The sound of his gritted teeth echoed in her ears. Xin Niaoling, ever since I was reborn, I've given you immense face. I had long planned to confer upon you the title of Imperial Noble Consort, entrust you with the authority over the Imperial harem, and even specially sent a letter to the border, inviting my uncle to attend the wedding banquet. That's my own uncle, Song Jinglan. I heard he's about to get married too, and because you think so highly of yourself, he was specially invited to bring honor to your Shen family. The silver bracelet slipped off my wrist, which was bruised purple from being squeezed. I watched helplessly as it bounced into Huang Yulian's arms, then with a clink, fell into the pool. The water rippled for a moment, then returned to stillness. At this moment, Xia Yuan was also stunned. A surge of blood rushed to his head. Without hesitation, I raised my hand and delivered a fierce slap to his face. My nails scraped across his cheek, drawing blood immediately. Half a quarter of an hour later, Xia Yuan's gaze darkened as he stared at me, wiping the blood from his face, then silently left with Huang Yulian, clutching my aching wrist. I stumbled and plunged into the pool. That tiny silver bracelet was gone in the blink of an eye. The icy pond water chilled me to the bone. I practically soaked in the pond, searching for a full day and night, until the maids could bear it no longer and, after much persuasion, dragged me into the room, removed my clothes, bathed me, and applied medicine. That very night, I developed a high fever and remained in a daze, dreaming of the frontier fortress amidst a sky full of yellow sand. Mother's hand, carrying the gentle scent of medicine, caressed the top of my head. Ah Ling, grow up quickly. When you're older, Mother will teach you how to practice medicine and diagnose illnesses, and Father will teach you how to wield swords and spears. Mother, why does adult life come with so much unspoken pain? Why can't I forever lie in your embrace, enjoying your affection, remaining your well-behaved child? It wasn't until the wedding day that my condition improved. Outside, the clamor of gongs and drums could be heard. I sit before the bronze mirror, reflecting a face as fair as a lotus blossom, dressed in a wedding gown embroidered with golden phoenixes. The red bridal veil slowly descends. Father, Mother, Ailing is getting married. The Imperial instructress sent by the Emperor held my hand as we stepped out of the Shen residence. Yet standing at the head of the wedding procession was none other than Xia Yuan. He too was dressed in wedding attire, a glaring shade of red. Indeed, the Emperor had once mentioned to me that Xia Yuan was also set to marry Huang Yulian today. Why did he appear at the Shen residence? Xin Niaoling, before taking you into the palace, I have something to give you. I watched coldly as he pulled out a brand new silver bracelet from his sleeve, his expression slightly awkward. You like silver bracelets, don't you? I had the finest craftsman make one for you. I couldn't be bothered to deal with him and kept walking forward, but he grabbed my wrist again. The medicated area hurt terribly, but this time I endured it. I've already convinced Yulian to let you both be crown princesses together. She'll reside in the East Wing, and you'll stay in the West Wing. No interference between you. A trace of anger flashed between his brows. I've already taken a huge step back for you. Why won't you just let it go? Because, the corners of my lips slowly curved upward. Because I don't like you, Your Highness. Xia Yuan, flushed with anger, lost his composure. Don't like me, yet you're still marrying me today. He scooped me up horizontally, attempting to forcibly stuff me into the bridal sedan. Just as I was screaming and struggling, far in the distance, the sound of chaotic hoofbeats arose. The approaching figure rode a black steed, his silver helmet gleaming with a cold light, his battle robe as crimson as blood. His frame was broader than Xia Yuan's and half a head taller. He dismounted, extending his hands, palms rough with thick calluses. With a strong yet gentle force, he pulled me back from Xia Yuan's embrace. My dear nephew, surely you didn't think your uncle would miss the wedding banquet. So you came to fetch your aunt in his stead. Aunt. Xia Yuan stared at his now empty arms, completely dumbfounded. A sense of foreboding instantly rose in his heart, his voice trembling. "Uncle, the person you're going to marry, is it Shin Yaoling?" I abruptly took over his words. "Xia Yuan, the auspicious hour is almost here. I must marry into the Duke's residence, and you should marry Huang Yulian, as he said in his past life. Do not covet the wealth and glory of the heavens. In this life, I no longer covet or cling. I will fulfill his wish to marry the one he loves as his rightful wife." The wedding procession brought by Song Jinglan was 3 times larger than the one Xia Yuan had brought, enough to fill the entire street, not to mention the bridal sedan chair adorned with gold, jade, and precious gems. People who saw it would think he was marrying a princess. Seeing that I was being protected by Song Jinglan and about to enter the bridal sedan, Xia Yuan's eyes turned red with urgency. "No, Ailing, you are my destined wife. You can only marry me." Song Jinglan simply wrapped his arm around my waist and lifted me onto the horse. It's quite a coincidence for uncle and nephew to marry on the same day. But right now, Miss Yulian must be waiting for you anxiously. He lowered his voice, his tone seemingly laced with threat. "If our late elder sister in heaven learns you dared to compete with your own uncle for a bride, she'll surely give you a good scolding in your dreams tonight." Xia Yuan's eyes widened in shock. He finally realized what he was about to lose. In a swift motion, he lunged forward and desperately grabbed my ankle, tilting his head up. The sunlight revealed his increasingly pallid face. He had never spoken to me in such a pleading tone before. "Ah Ling, please stay." How annoying. A perfectly good pair of mandarin duck embroidered shoes were almost ruined by his grip. I lowered my lashes and kicked Xia Yuan's hand. He recoiled in pain, stumbling backward before falling to the ground, looking utterly disheveled. "Ah Ling." A muffled snicker came from behind, as if someone couldn't hold back anymore. Song Jinglan held my waist, his chin resting on my shoulder, firmly gripping the reins. His tone was so light it seemed to float. "I'm leaving." The sound of gongs and drums rose. From then on, I would never look back. Arriving at the Duke's residence, we were greeted by another scene of splendid decorations. Song Jinglan stretched out his arms from below the horse, allowing me to jump down and land securely in his embrace. In full view of all the guests, he carried me into the mansion with great dignity for the wedding ceremony. When the wedding night arrived, I gazed at the overwhelming display of double happiness characters adorning the bedroom. Along with it came the unease of soon becoming a wife. What kind of man is Song Jinglan? Really, will he truly come to like me? And why did he agree to marry me in the first place? Are you scared, Miss Ailing? The man's laughter was surprisingly pleasant to the ear. My fingers tightly twisted the bridal veil. When Song Jinglan lifted the red veil, and I finally got a clear look at that face, my heart skipped a beat. "How could it be you?" I covered my mouth in surprise. Song Jinglan leaned down, his nose almost touching mine, his eyes brimming with warmth. "The little girl who saved me at the border back then has grown up so much in the blink of an eye. This was many years ago, when my father was ordered to the border to fight against the barbarians, and my mother and I accompanied him to tend to the wounded soldiers. Once while gathering herbs in the mountains, I came across a blood-soaked man lying in a cliffside stream. He was tall and heavy as a boulder. I found a wooden plank and struggled mightily to drag him back. The man's face was mostly burned beyond recognition by gunpowder, utterly disfigured. His mother had him stay in the woodshed and prepared medicinal herbs to heal his wounds. I suppressed my fear, applying medicine to him daily and taking meticulous care of him. When the scars on his face faded, he turned out to be a handsome man with sharp eyebrows and starry eyes. I still remember, before he left, he asked me what my name was. Breathing in the fragrance of the herbs, I answered crisply, "My name is Shin Yaoling." After that, I never saw him again. To my surprise, he turned out to be the current emperor's uncle, Ailing. Song Jinglan's eyes flickered with a hint of heartache as he gently held my wrist. "Your hand is injured." The previously bandaged wound, having been pulled by Xia Yuan, began to seep faint traces of blood again. "It's nothing, just a minor injury." I had never been this close to a man before. and my cheeks flushed crimson involuntarily. Song Jinglan carefully unwrapped the gauze, applied the medicinal powder with gentle precision, and then meticulously rebandaged the wound. His thick, dark eyelashes cast shadows on his cheeks, and the candlelight shimmered faintly in the depths of his eyes. My heart skipped a beat. He was truly beautiful. Unlike Xia Yuan, whose youthful charm was bold and unrestrained, Song Jinglan not only had exceptionally handsome features, but his demeanor was also steady and reserved. His deep, dark eyes seemed to conceal endless stories. Thank you. Song Jinglan gazed at me with a smile. Do married couples need to be so polite with each other? This was no cold-faced king of hell. He was gentle beyond words. A soft chuckle escaped. The pair of dragon and phoenix candles by the window crackled as their wicks flared. I faintly feel that this is a good omen for my marriage. Imperial uncle. My lady. You should call me husband. Song Jinglan suddenly pressed his lips to mine, tenderly at first with light kisses, then gradually deepening into an entanglement of lips and teeth, leaving me flushed. When released, leaning against his shoulder, all that remained was my shallow panting. Ah Ling. The call was filled with tender affection. Song Jinglan leaned in close, startling me into tightly shutting my eyes. For the first half-month after our marriage, Song Jinglan had just returned from the border. Instead of rushing to the palace to report on his duties, he stayed home with me to help me recover from my injuries. Dishes like cherry pork, shark fin with osmanthus, steamed shad, whatever I fancied. They were served to the table in an endless stream. He even ruffled my hair and said to me, "If it's not enough, I'll go buy you something else from the best restaurant in the capital." Blushing, I shook my head. That's enough. It's definitely enough. The weight I lost from illness before the wedding was gradually restored by him, bite by bite. During that time, I overheard gossip from the chattering maids about Xia Yuan. That day, after witnessing me become his aunt, he returned to the palace in utter dejection. The coronation ceremony for Huang Yulian as imperial consort also did not go smoothly. The great Confucian scholar who had enlightened and taught him arrived. The old general who had instructed him in horsemanship and archery came, and even the elderly eunuch who had raised him since childhood appeared. Several elderly scholars, as if by prior agreement, knelt in unison at the palace gates during the grand ceremony. Their cries were heart-wrenching. One moment he was vehemently denouncing the bewitching charms of the Hu woman, accusing her of seducing the crown prince and scheming to bring ruin to the nation and its people. Who knew if she was a spy sent by the barbarians? The next, he was tearfully lamenting how the crown prince, having lost his mother at a young age, was too naive and had fallen under the spell of a mere Hu courtesan, all because they had failed to properly educate him in the past. The entire court was watching, and the scene was beyond awkward. The emperor remained silent, his face cold and unreadable. In the end, the old general knocked his forehead until it bled, and the great scholar was left foaming at the mouth under the scorching sun. No matter how love-struck Xia Yuan might be, he couldn't bear the reputation of being unfilial and heartless. His face turned pale, his lips trembling as he spoke. Please rise quickly, esteemed elders. I will only confer upon her the title of Liangdi. As soon as the words fell, Huang Yulian, who had been doted on by Xia Yuan to the point of being spoiled rotten, saw darkness before her eyes and fainted straight away. The incident caused a huge uproar in the capital, turning the dignified crown prince into a laughingstock during tea-time conversations. However, with Song Jinglan by my side, none of this had anything to do with me anymore. After my wrist healed, I received an invitation from the emperor. The day I entered the palace, the sky was gloomy, and fine snowflakes began to fall, covering the eaves and rooftops of the imperial palace with a layer of white snow. Song Jinglan had hunted a snow fox from the western regions and commissioned the finest embroiderer in the palace to make me a cloak. Wearing it, I felt warm all over, as if I were basking in the spring sun. To be honest, stroking the snow-white, warm fox fur, I had never used anything so precious in my previous life. Whenever new exotic treasures were presented as tribute, Xia Yuan would always give them to Huang Yulian first, never letting me lay a finger on them. He always said that my Shen family was of noble lineage, and we must not encourage my extravagant tendencies. So, there are still people in this world willing to indulge me. Song Jinglan held my hand and led me into the hall of mental cultivation. The white jade steps in front of the hall were already smooth, now made even more so by the melting snow. I suddenly twisted my ankle, but fortunately, Song Jinglan firmly caught me by the waist. "My lady, are you all right?" Song Jinglan sighed softly and knelt down to gently massage my ankle. The passing palace maid watched with a knowing smile, feeling rather embarrassed. I buried myself deeper into his embrace. Song Jinglan's lips curled into an amused smirk as he leaned forward and scooped me up in his arms. "No, that's not what I meant. We're in the Imperial Palace." Song Jinglan lowered his gaze, staring at my flushed cheeks with a beaming smile. "It doesn't matter where. That's exactly what I mean. Just like that." I was locked in his warm embrace, stepping up one stair at a time. Behind us, unseen, the cold wind scattered red plum blossoms across the ground, their vibrant hue against the glistening white snow like splashes of crimson blood. Xia Yuan stood at the palace gate, watching helplessly as Song Jinglan's intimate gestures toward me nearly made him crush his own fists in fury. Yet in their past life, only he, as her husband, had been the one to share such closeness with Shen Niaoling. Xia Yuan's eyes churned with emotion as his arm was suddenly gently embraced. Huang Yulian nestled closer, carefully observing his expression. "Your Highness, I prepared some warm porridge this morning. Come back with me to eat." Xia Yuan closed his eyes briefly, all emotions in his gaze receding, replaced by a hint of cold detachment. "You should refer to yourself as this concubine." Huang Yulian's eyes reddened, as if she had done something wrong, and she lowered her head. The emperor had long heard of Song Jinglan's reputation as the cold-faced king of hell, and wanted to offer him a few words of advice on the way of being a husband. Seeing me being carried into the hall in his arms like a little rabbit, he couldn't help but show a gratified smile. "Ah Ling has found a good home, and I can finally face the Shen family with a clear conscience." The emperor then spoke to Song Jinglan about the barbarian disturbances at the northwestern border. His implication quite obvious. He needed this great general to resolve the court's worries. Song Jinglan grasped my fingers and said solemnly, "Your Majesty, I need to discuss this matter with my wife. From the first day I married into the Song family, I understood that Song Jinglan, like my father, was a hero defending the frontier. He could not afford to indulge in my tenderness, for he had a broader world to conquer. So I told him, 'Go with peace of mind. I will wait for you at home.'" The next morning, the snow in the capital fell even heavier. Amidst the vast snowfall, I nestled into Song Jinglan's embrace, suppressing the sorrow in my heart. "Promise me, you will return safely." He kissed my cheek and whispered softly, "Naturally, I can't let you become a widow at such a young age." Only when the army had gone far away did I dare to turn my back and secretly cry for a while. Looking up, I saw Xia Yuan gazing at me with deep, solemn eyes. Even on such a snowy day, Xia Yuan's face looked unusually pale, unable to conceal his sickly appearance. I wrinkled my nose. "Have you eaten something bad recently? You look like you've been poisoned." Xia Yuan's eyes seemed to ignite. He took a swift step forward and tightly grasped my hands. "Ah Ling, I knew you still cared about me." I unceremoniously shook off his hand. "Don't flatter yourself. It's just because my mother was a healer. I'm more sensitive to these things." His eyes dimmed, and a bitter smile tugged at the corners of his lips. "Do you know, if I were to ascend the throne and become emperor in the future, I could issue an edict forcing you and Song Jinglan to divorce. At that time, I would seize you and bring you into the palace, making you my empress. The entire court would be powerless to stop me, simply because I am the son of heaven." The emperor. I slightly raised my gaze, my eyes filled with both mockery and disdain. Throughout thousands of years of history, I've heard of stealing daughters-in-law. I've heard of stealing stepmothers. But never have I heard of stealing an ant. You and Song Ginglon share the same blood in your veins. He is your biological uncle, and you owe part of your stable position in the Eastern Palace to him. Dare to steal his wife. Aren't you afraid your own mother might crawl out of the Imperial mausoleum to come after you? Xia Yuan's face turned extremely grim. He couldn't be bothered to entertain such nonsense any longer. I turned and walked away without hesitation. Xia Yuan had already grasped the unyielding determination in me that even 8 horses couldn't pull back. In an instant, panic overwhelmed me completely, leaving me utterly defeated. Ailing, I beg you, for the sake of sharing a bed in our past life, don't be so cold to me. His voice abruptly stopped. I turned back, filled with suspicion. Xia Yuan's face suddenly changed, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. A few dark red droplets splattered onto my cheeks. My liver and gallbladder trembled with fear. This is the scent of Spatholobus suberectus. The crown prince, no less, was actually poisoned within the palace walls. The emperor flew into a rage and sent people to search Huang Yulian's chambers, where they found a large quantity of Spatholobus suberectus. That woman is truly pig-brained. How could she not know that an excessive amount of Spatholobus is highly poisonous? Huang Yulian knelt on the ground, continuously kowtowing, her pitiful sobs painting a sorrowful picture. This concubine didn't mean to. This concubine only saw that His Highness was weak and specially sought out this Spatholobus to make porridge to nourish his health. Never did I imagine that good intentions would lead to such a disaster. Her wailing was exceptionally grating, making the emperor feel as if he were under a tightening curse. I examined the spilled Spatholobus stems scattered on the ground, picked one up casually, and sniffed it. A very pungent odor. This is Spatholobus brought from the western regions, extremely toxic and completely unavailable in the capital. Huang Yulian's wailing stopped abruptly. Her emerald green pupils stared at me without blinking. Tear stains still lingered on her cheeks. This was the first time I had seen such an eerie expression on her face. There was a time when I too had noticed something amiss with consort Wang Shu, but every time I brought these up with Xia Yuan, he always thought I was consumed by jealousy and deliberately trying to frame his beloved. Spatholobus is an extremely precious medicinal herb in the western regions. You must have been prepared from the moment you met Xia Yuan. Huang Yulian raised an eyebrow, her gaze full of provocation. I really couldn't imagine, past and present, what kind of heart truly lies beneath this pitiful exterior. The emperor suddenly sensed something amiss. What do you mean? I gazed intently at every subtle shift in Huang Yulian's expression. The meaning is, Huang Yulian raised her hand to wipe away her tears, smiling radiantly. I did it on purpose. The emperor was so furious that he smashed a teacup. He immediately ordered, without consulting the crown prince, to throw Huang Yulian into the dungeon and subject her to rigorous interrogation. But Huang Yulian's lips were sealed tight. Despite the endless stream of torture devices used on her, she refused to utter a single confession. Yet I had already guessed most of the truth. What could give a foreign woman such courage? To travel thousands of miles to poison a nation's crown prince. Surely, there must be someone hidden deep in her heart. I heard you were originally the fiancé of some barbarian general from the western regions. Xia Yuan set a trap and killed that general, then beheaded him and displayed his head at the city gate as a warning. After that, you fell into destitution and became a beggar. I arrived at the dungeon. Huang Yulian had long been tortured to the point of being covered in wounds, bearing no resemblance to the once pampered and adored woman. She brushed aside the blood-soaked strands of hair and gave me a faint smile. Sister Shen is truly remarkable, far more intelligent than some useless person lying in bed. She suddenly sat up and grabbed my hand.